why people, generally teachers, are opposed to that. Also, the other problem is that if you're running an inclusion program correctly, you're supposed to have 2 full-time teachers, one certified special ed, one in general ed. You're not seeing that. It generally falls to the general ed teacher because of budget. But if you really had the full-time special ed teacher there, it might work a whole lot better. Okay? The kids don't have to go anyplace. They're not responsible for what they miss when they're out of the room. They should get what's geared to them, but we don't know. Magnet schools, second issue. The original purpose of magnet schools was to desegregate schools, particularly inner city schools, by providing attractive curriculum that would have people voluntarily send their children to those schools even though they weren't their schools. Okay. White flight means that some people, some of the white population, when those schools were desegregated, pulled their children out. They didn't want to send their children to desegregated schools. They pulled them out, sent them to private schools or parochial schools, or moved to the suburbs, which were still segregated. Magnet schools provide an early start on a career choice. Argument against that, though, is a lot of people believe in it at like high school, but not elementary, because they say that the children are too young to know their minds at that point, what they really want to do. And if you put them in a magnet school for years, they're going to feel compelled to stay in that because they already spent so much time on that, whatever it was. Another problem with magnet schools is transportation, because they're picking up kids who don't live any place near these schools. They got to pick them up very early, go all over the place picking up other kids to get them to school on time. So everybody's got to start the day much earlier. After school, they got to drive around dropping them off again, so they get home much later. They're not participating with neighborhood kids in any after-school activities because they weren't there. They come home, they eat dinner, they do homework, go to bed because they got to get up early the next day and start again. Magnet schools can use race as a basis for admission only if they've been court-ordered to desegregate. Then they would have to use it because otherwise they won't know what the breakdown of the population is. More than half the magnet schools in the U.S. are elementary schools. So if you start a child at a magnet elementary, let's say for foreign language or whatever, is he going to be able to find a magnet school, high school, that he could continue that study at? All right, you got to think about numbers here. Elementary schools have a population of about 1,000, but high schools have several thousand. And you have feeder patterns with several elementaries feeding into middle, and then several middle feeding into high school. You don't need as many high schools to continue as you needed elementary. So it's quite possible that you could continue. Uniforms, they're said to reduce violence. You can argue that both ways. Increase attendance, except if it's dirty and then you have nothing to wear. And maybe they raise academic achievement, but we need more research on that. Is a dress code the same as mandatory uniform policy? No. Dress code tells you you may not wear this, this, and this, and a uniform policy says you must wear this color, this style, whatever. Arguments, it's supposed to help you spot intruders, cut down on violence, cut down on gangs. Arguments against, at least when the gangs wore the specific colors, you could identify who was in the gang. Now everybody looks the same, you don't know. It's easy to duplicate, especially when they don't enforce the patch on the shirt. So if an intruder really wants to get in, it's not that hard. Okay, mixed age, 2 basic reasons. One is a philosophical belief that this is a better way to go. And the other is numbers. I have more 3rd graders than I can fit in my 3rd grade classes, but not enough for another class. And I also have too many 4th graders, not enough for another class. I'll put them together and make a mixed age 3rd, 4th. Hire 1 teacher, use 1 room. Who did this in the beginning? Horace Mann, superintendent of schools in Massachusetts, because he saw it on a trip to Bavaria and liked it. Continuous progress means you just can continue working at your own pace. There's no set grade levels. Arguments for, it's more like a family. Children work at ability instead of age levels. Against, maybe they're not getting as much as they should in a mixed age class. Again, you should have 2 teachers, and you often don't. So that's a problem too. Pay for performance, it goes fully into effect next year, 2014. about at least 50% of the teacher's salary will be determined by how well their students or somebody's students do on standardized tests. The pros, you could conceivably get a higher salary, but the cons, you're being held responsible for things that are out of your control and paid accordingly. And usually you pay for performance no matter how well you do and how hard you work. It's only the top 20% that get the pay. So that's not good either. Retention, it doesn't work. This is the bottom line of retention. Strongest argument is what it does to the dropout rate, high correlation. Social promotion means that even though the child didn't achieve academically, we promote him and keep him with his peers. Arguments against, doesn't work. Arguments for, seems logical, but it doesn't work. Vouchers, they do not violate separation of church and state according to the Supreme Court because the money follows the child. It's not going to support religion. They're not constitutional any longer under the Florida state constitution because it prohibits public money going to private anything. Thomas Jefferson, would he have favored vouchers? No way. No. Okay. Single-sex classes, does the teacher have to be the same sex as the children?
No.
No, and that would never work in elementary because there are not enough male elementary teachers. Do boys in a single-sex class show a stronger preference for stereotype subjects like art and music? Yes, they do. Arguments against, it's unrealistic, it's not the real world. Arguments for, it seems that the genders learn differently, and if we could figure out the best way to teach each one, maybe they could progress better in a single-sex class. Year-round, we just did. They don't attend all year. It can increase the capacity of the school only if it's multi-track. Single-track doesn't. They try to put siblings on the same track, no guarantee. They try to put the teacher, if you're a teacher in a multi-track school, they try to put you on the same track as your children. But again, there's no guarantee. Everybody in the family could be on a different schedule. I'm sure it would be very fun. Yeah.
I saw a school that was like half of the kids go in the morning and half of the kids go in the afternoon.
Yeah,
is that the same thing?
No, that's a split schedule. It's like I had in high school. We were on 3 different schedules.
Mm-hmm.
But no, that's not multi-track.
Oh.
That's just a split schedule.
Okay.
Okay,